All right, Light Warriors. Tonight we have a very special guest and a good friend of mine, Adam Gell, and we're going to be talking about the current energy themes of the world. It's a very powerful time period, and it's a really important time period for all of us to embrace our sovereignty and our true power. Adam, it's good to be with you.
Nice to be with you, Michael.
Yeah,
It's
it's
always
a
good to
it's
be
a
with you.
it's a it's a very interesting time period. A lot of people don't feel motivated. They feel very discouraged, especially in the last few weeks. They might feel like leadership is kind of selected, and they don't really know really what to do. And it's really important that people learn how to navigate these times and relying on themselves instead of other people. And what is your thoughts on this?
Well, I think the message is not to give up. I think what life is showing us is almost like the spiral effect of what goes around comes around, and we're going around in circles. But we're each time as we revolve around the spiral, I think we have to take with us some of the wisdom that we learned from the experiences before, in terms of how we react to the different situations that feel like a rejection or a feeling of depression. And I think we can't use, well, we want to use the external world as a guidepost for our personal emotional state, and have some like breakthroughs where we see actually light at the end of the tunnel. I guess life is presenting itself where we still have to hold on and go inward in some capacity to find that inner guidance or that inner strength to move forward, or at least even if we're in a holding pattern, to at least be patient with ourselves. I think it's easy for us to take the stress out on ourselves if we're invested in seeing change take place quickly.
Yeah, you really you hit the nail on the head. It really does feel like we're in a holding pattern right now. How could people gauge like where we really are going? Because you really can't get any information on the news. So with so much confusion, some even myself, some days it feels like, oh, we're moving in the right direction, we're almost there, and then sometimes it feels like we took two steps back. So, how can people really gauge where we are going?
Well, I think we'd have to gauge it based upon our own growth. I think we have to use, as I said before, ourselves as a guidepost for where we are. I think if we externalize or displace our feelings or our own emotions and conflicts on the outside world, I think what's going on will reflect to us in a negative way, because it's not mirroring what we really want to see. So I think the mirroring has to be within ourselves so that we can see the external world from our eyes and create our own reality. I think the media and listening and hoping and waiting for that information to come to us is as sometimes we discuss, it's like watching water boil. And it takes much longer for the water to boil when you watch it than if you walk out of the room and come back in, then it's somewhat completed. I think if we distract ourselves a little bit as well with the personal growth, with on work on ourselves, it gives us the opportunity, the perfect time while things are, like cooking, so to speak, to actually manifest something in our lives and not wait for that that information to come through that will be maybe a satisfaction or a victory, but then what will be the next satisfaction or victory that we need again to feel satisfaction within our own self.
Yeah. It really is a time for self-growth. And I feel that God is like really allowing all of this to happen because we lived in a world of false idols where people gave up their basically their free will for people in certain places, or just because they're on the TV screen or because they had a certificate. But as we move forward in the future, it's really going to be the people that are going to lead, after this major collapse. So I really do feel it's like we're being forged in the fire and like becoming a diamond right now. On my journey, I could have been still in the failing Department of Education, and I was really put under a lot of pressure, and it really made me focus on my self growth, and learning new traits and new tools and new abilities. And I created this whole community and channel and Patreon. I know you're starting your own Patreon, and
Yeah.
I was able to teach you about some of these things. And I had to learn this, so we're opening a whole new world. So I feel like God's doing it on purpose because it's us that are gonna have to show the people, because the truth doesn't have to be defended. So eventually the truth always comes out. But what's going to happen is I feel a lot of people will be very lost, very confused. And that's where a lot of us, you're, sharing in your light. I'm sharing a certain way. We have friends that are sharing in their ways. And that's why I feel it's important that we all really focus on what we love to do. I love to do this. I know you love to do healing. And when we focus on what we love, it makes this time a lot easier. And, you talked about, distracting ourselves. What are some good ways for us to distract ourselves? Because even I need a break sometimes too.
Yeah, well, I think the repetitive information of, going around in circles, of listening and waiting for that one moment that will be a breakthrough, as I said before, is a waiting game that could take forever. And then, as I said, it's like when you win a victory or something comes in your favor, how long does that feeling last? Is it forever? Is it for the moment? Is it just temporary? And then what's the next thing that a person is seeking to overcome or to have in their corner to make them feel satisfactory? So I think it's an internal work, and it's an internal victory of satisfaction with ourselves. I think when we work on ourselves, I think when we build that self-esteem and that understanding and compassion for ourselves, and we're not in conflict with ourselves, then I think it we don't focus in on the external world to the extent that we need to in order to get validation or some completion from ourselves. I think, as you said before, I said like a diamond is first it starts off as a piece of sandstone, and then it turns into coal, and then it turns into a diamond, and it takes so much pressure and years for that to develop. And just like a mountain, the mountaintop doesn't form without the wind blowing over the mountain itself in order to shape the top of the mountain's peak. And the same thing applies to us. I think if we allow our journey to define us, I mean, we have to have a direction and we have to go in that direction. But once we're in the direction and we make our minds up, I think that the nature will naturally carve its path within us. And as long as we're doing the right work and we're coming from a good place, I think we'll find that path and we'll be supported to, do the work. And as you say, and we speak about a lighthouse. I mean, when the lighthouse was probably going up, people looked at it and said, "What are they doing? They're building this cylindrical object by the water," and had no idea why they build a house looking by the water, knowing that the waves and they could destroy it. And then obviously, when the last part of it's finished, then the reflection begins and it assists the boats out in the ocean. The same thing like the information you're giving out, and or the work you're doing, and the work I'm doing is trying to. It's never complete. It's always another day of just spiraling around and completing another circle of evolution, of growth.
Yeah. One of the things that you mentioned, like let's just say, where everyone's waiting for disclosure, or the truth comes out, and then what? So one of the things I share about is building, new subconscious programs in our life, and that's the way that we're going to live, going forward, and go off the subconscious programs that have been built now, not the ones that we had, from the old matrix, as I say. So there's a phrase that I like to use, progress over perfect. And I think that's why this is kind of happening right now. The perfect scenario would be the truth comes out and we fix everything. But I mean, I think a lot of people that are listening to this, don't you see progress? You could in the past few years, do you see progress since 2020 till now? Are more people awake? Do you find that there's more like-minded individuals? Do you see progress since 2016? Isn't there more an awakening? It seems very dark right now, but we're going through the event, and the event is the expansion of consciousness, and more people are conscious and aware. And when we're not aware, right? If we go into a dark room and there's no light, no information, you bump yourself, you fall down. And a
Right.
lot of people are in the dark on this information. So it really is an expansion of consciousness, and it's really about just making progress every day.
Well, I think when I was a teacher, I always told the students that even though you don't see my knapsack that I have on my back, I walk into school with an invisible knapsack that I carry. and we all carry baggage with us. And irregardless of the baggage we carry, we still have to move forward and still have to learn and grow and learn how to deal with that weight on our back. And as we progress and move forward in our lives, we wind up being able to deal with the weight on our back a little bit better because it becomes lighter because we become accustomed to it. I think information helps us to better understand these concepts, and I think that when we're in the process, as you said, of awakening, I think more people are awakening because people are realizing that what's working, what has worked in the past in people's minds is not working any longer. And I think that we are coming to a place where we are seeing people and seeing information that doesn't make sense and is questioning our own intelligence. And many people who may not have been on this journey 2 years ago are probably making baby steps towards maybe the steps that other people who would starting that 2, 3 years ago are making. Maybe they're doing it now. Information is like, people questioning the information that they hear.
Absolutely. I see that across the board. Like you mentioned, things in the past just don't work anymore. The way of life, the way my mindset is, especially say with finances, everyone is questioning finances. I think the hyperinflation is really making people question. That's one example. Like our parents said, you work and you put money in the bank, and that's the responsible way. But
Right.
we're kind of losing if we do that. So what worked in the past doesn't work on my journey. I used to do, I used to work out, do bodybuilding shows, and the way I ate, it no longer works for me. The way I took supplements, it doesn't work for me anymore. So I have to adopt new ways. So I feel like we're changing mentally, we're changing physically. Our bodies are literally changing right now with the solar flash, and I think that we're also changing spiritually, and that's the major thing.
Yeah, I think again, I think when we reincarnated into this lifetime, I believe, that we chose the path that we'd go and the path and what we'd learn and what we'd go through. And I think a person like yourself and myself and other people who are interested in this type of work and this type of growth, personal growth, have known that using this information that we're receiving and the dichotomy, the conflict between the evil and the good and the bad, the dark and the light, is the ability for us to then to see it and then to decipher where we want to go from there. Without that darkness, we wouldn't be able to see any of shine the light on anything. We would just, everything would be light. So I think it's important for us to have this darkness in this time frame to be an impetus for us to use it as so like the phoenix coming out of the fire, to use it as a stepping stone or a spring to move forward and to jump forward with it. Some people will be behind that wall and say, I'm never going near that. I don't want to see the light. Don't show me it. It's too bright for me and I'll get blinded by it. And others want to forge themselves through it. And I think we're in that period now where we chose this type of reincarnation to actually go through this type of, this holding pattern and growth and suffering and everything that everybody's experiencing who's on this path.
It takes a lot of guts, I say. There's a phrase I've been sharing right now. There's the man in the stands and the man in the arena. And some people, they're up in the stands watching this all happen. And when you're sitting there watching, that's what they want. Biblically, they said they're going to give us bread and circus, and that's what's now in modern times they got nachos and cheese. They're
Right,
sitting
right,
up in the stands eating nachos and cheese, right? They slow you down. That's also literally the food. They poison us with these foods and the GMOs. I know you know a lot about GMOs. This is all connected, the spiritual aspect, the physical aspect with the food. It actually disconnects our connection. Anyone that's listening, I shared this before when I did my bodybuilding show and I was really eating clean years ago. That was really what kind of changed me and brought forth my spiritual awakening journey. So really, starting off with the diet is one thing. But yeah, to go back to this the man in the stands, just sitting around, and that's what we see, in the news or other platforms. Oh, just wait, it'll be okay. Just wait it out a little bit long. But then there's the man in the arena, and recently I updated it for the it's for all people. The warrior in the arena. We got very powerful women as well. Some people will take that literal. So it's the warrior in the arena. So how can a person be, say, the warrior in the arena? Because we came here to participate in this event. Like it's really not for us, because we have this soul growth, and I know I can't live with myself. We didn't really come here, and a person can do this, but you could take everything, sell it off, and move off grid, move up the mountain, and just be done with it all. But we came here to participate. So, like, what are some ways that, like, people, maybe they don't want to do a channel like, we have, and be in front of a lot of people, but how can people be participating in this, and being that warrior?
Well, I think being authentic with oneself is one of the ways of doing it. I think a person has to be authentic with themselves. They have to, I guess, know thyself. We've all been raised in homes that have their own personal dysfunctions and own personal stories. And sometimes people are so stuck on living in that past story so that they don't have to face their present or future reality. And I think, so much of what the media speaks about and so much of what the food they sell are all means of just suppressing our own will, and people cave into it. They never challenge what they're eating. They never challenge what they're told. So I think being the warrior means stepping away from what the general population is doing. I'm not saying the good things that they're doing, but most of the times it's some of the negative things that are being portrayed through television. So I think being authentic with oneself and standing up against, first of all, ourselves, the part of ourselves that we don't feel is strong enough to overcome, or feel isolated or abandoned from family and friends that would mock or shame us into submission because of their inability to move forward. So I think the warrior is a person who's able to stand above the pressures that family, friends, and society puts upon one. And doesn't mean that a person should be a loner or abandon, friendships, but it means to, I guess, differentiate between who has someone's best interest in mind and is supportive of the journey and path that a person is on. And then to be able to take those lonely days and move forward when you feel you don't have the support, and rely upon yourself.
That is very powerful. You have to, live with yourself. I say regret is worse than failure. I recently just did a video kind of like pushing the limits of, censorship, and maybe to show people that, maybe there really isn't so much censorship out there. And like, we create it with fear. They implant this seed of fear. But there is a lot of mocking and shaming out there, and that's how they get. It's the lowest state. Shame is the lowest state of consciousness. So we see that in the news, and then like our family and friends and people that we know, and coworkers, or wherever it comes in many forms. But people will mock and shame you for thinking outside the box. What do you got to do that for? Just go back to work. What do you got to prove? But my life, and I know you're changed. We both changed so much over the last few years. I have no regrets, and I shared I talk about the rapture, right? Like it's a biblical event, the rapture. And like, people think like, people might go into the sky, but we're all kind of raptured. We're on a totally different timeline right now. And some people, they're still on that old timeline, doing the same thing that they did in 2020 or prior, and they think, oh, it's just going to go back to normal. But it's never going to go back. It's in a totally different we're in a totally different place. So it really is powerful, putting on that full armor of God, and dealing with the mocking and the shame. That's the storm that we all go through.
Yeah, I think it's important for us to challenge ourselves. I mean, a lot of the mocking and the shaming actually exists within ourselves. It's first overcoming our own inner voice, I feel. I mean, we can go through this path and journey in our own little way and feel abandoned from ourselves and disconnected from ourselves at some point in our lives. And it doesn't have to be the spiritual path. It could be the path of, a person feels like they didn't look good enough. They may have been overweight, or they may have been picked on when they were, younger by someone else. And then they internalize that they weren't good enough, or they didn't like themselves. So I think this is a great time for us to get to know ourselves completely. And I think a lot of the work, that inner work, or that shadow work that people may have been doing, which a lot of people are doing, is probably been the most difficult, but also the most enlightening for people to like break through and realize that they need their totality. You know, they need the inner child, they need the part of themselves, and they need the adult part of themselves in whole, so that a person is able to move forward and then not fight, but to overcome what society puts upon everyone in terms of sedating or subduing the person's unconscious mind through television, through food, and through, as we just spoke about, social programming, like, right, you know, friends and people, and people not brave enough or warrior enough like to stand above it. So instead of them not being able to do it, they shame the people who make that move, who have the insight and the wisdom to go forward and have the bravery to actually do it. And so sometimes we feel like we have imposter syndrome because we are not supported by the people who we once knew were supportive of us, friends, family. But I think if we hold our space of who we are and what we want to be, then we have no choice but to be who we are. And then the people will either respect us and say, oh, you know what? I kind of understand what the person's saying now, where before they didn't.
Yeah, I think like you said before, it's about ourselves. So there is no mocking and shaming. Like if a person did that to you and you have the inexhaustible belief in yourself, if you have that love for yourself, say mocking and shame. Get out of here. It's that you just wipe it. That's where the warrior. That's how I don't know. I'm sure you feel the same way. When I get the mocking and shaming, I don't get scared at all. It actually lights me up to do more. You know, my grandfather used to say, "Write it on your blackboard." I write these things down, and I don't run from it. I remember it, and it makes you. It's all about transmuting, which a lot of people, a lot of the love and lighters, the spiritual gurus, everything's unicorns and rainbows, everything's beautiful, right? Everything's beautiful. But I believe in transmuting. So
Right.
when I see those things, I just take it and it lights a fire in me like Rocky, and it's like you just want to hammer it down, and that's what transmuting is all about. So you don't have mocking and shaming doesn't affect you if you have that self-love and you believe in yourself. And you mentioned the inner child. It's really important. Like as like I go through the day. Sometimes I'm like the warrior, and sometimes I'm just like a kid. But they want to stifle the inner child because as a child we created all these things. We had imagination, and we need imagination right now. That's how we have inventions and inventors are born. And it's really important to be connected to our inner child.
Absolutely. The inner child is the connection to our heart. It's the connection to compassion and love for others and ourselves. And it's the creativity that we have as a human being that we are able to connect to that inner child and do the things we did as a child that gives us joy even as an adult, whether it be baseball cards, whether it be playing hockey, whether it be, just, playing an instrument. Some of the things that we left behind, some people leave things behind that are tied to parts that were negative in their lives, or the parts that they were shamed for as a child amongst friends or family members. And I think when we revisit that part, we bring totality, we bring wholeness to ourselves. One of the things I wanted to say, with, as you said before, transmuting, I think that many times people don't make it past the point of feeling like a victim in circumstances. And I think the difficult people in our lives, these friends, these people who impose this pressure on us, it's important for us to experience this pressure so that we grow from it, not become a victim of it. It's so easy for a person to like say, "Oh, I'm getting picked on. I'm getting this. I'm getting that. I just want to bury myself. I don't want to see this anymore." The important thing is to rise above the fire and to rise out of the ashes. And the way to do it is not to be a victim of circumstances, but to be learn from the experience and grow from it. And I think that's what you were speaking about in some capacity.
Yeah, I we've been sharing how you can't get any real news on the news, real information. But the other day, it was funny. I want to bring this up because I thought you would think this is interesting, and I think our audiences will think it's interesting as well. They had like these. It's a show, and it shows you all these crazy things caught on camera. And there was a man in Russia, and he was filming the full moon, and he had like a telescope, but it also records, right? A telescope that records. So he zooms in on the moon and he sees like these three UFOs going across the moon, and he starts like going crazy. What is this? Then he zooms in and there's a fleet of UFOs going across the moon. So I just what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, you know that I believe I have a high regard for other life out there on different in the universe. So I mean, I've had that experience myself of seeing certain things myself in person. Uh, I remember watching many of your videos of seeing the light behind you, trailing you as you spoke about topics on the universe. And I always felt that obviously it was the support for the words you were speaking that was like actually being, assisted from, different ET groups or whatever it may be. So yeah, I'm fascinated with that subject. I think that once you go in the rabbit hole of opening up yourself to the possibility that we're not the only thing that exists on this in this universe, you know that the information that we seek is endless. And I think that we have experiences where we're then either contacted in some degree, or we're given signals from the universe that we're not alone. And I've had that experience myself, just as I guess in some of the videos you have as well.
Yeah, you told me if you'd like to share. You want to share about the time on the beach?
Yeah, this was about I would say 2 years ago. I was sitting in the beach in New Jersey, and it was in the summer, obviously. And as I looked to the right, and most people were, I don't know, they probably, sometimes you see a bird flying in the sky, and a person may say, "Oh, I didn't see anything." But meanwhile, I picked my head up and I saw, let's say, a specific bird. But on that day, I saw like a silver disc that looked like a drone that turned into like a flat balloon that then just took off slowly into the clouds. And I'd say it was probably around 500 feet off the beach surface, right on the coastline. And it just disappeared. And it was like fascinating. And for that moment, you person would say, how come a person didn't take a picture of it or didn't video it or film it? It was so fast. And I was like intrigued by it so much that I was almost mesmerized by it. It wasn't something that was out in the distance. It was like right in front of me, I'd say. I would say, like I said, 600 feet. So for me, I couldn't believe it. And
Yeah.
that was, and then after that, having researched a little bit and interviewed people, they said most of the sightings are in the month of July, and that happened to have been in July.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah.
haven't had any things that I saw, but like you shared and I shared with my audience, I went back to those videos that I captured them on camera, and then I'm watching it one day on a big screen. I'm looking behind me. I'm watching, and I was over my parents' house. They have a bigger TV, and I said, "That's a UFO."
Yeah. It's so interesting that stuff when you sent it to me. I was so fascinated with that.
Yeah.
I had also an incident that winter, during the winter, probably November, December. And I was driving on the Jersey Turnpike, and right over my car, maybe about 100 feet, was like in the middle of the winter, was a blue like Roman candle that like lit up right in front of the car. I don't know what that was. I haven't couldn't say, but it was very interesting because I said it's not the summertime, and who's shooting Roman candles on the turnpike?
Yeah. Why do you think there's a portion of the population that is fearful of UFOs, or they gaslight you? Oh, this, yeah, you didn't see it. Why do you think they're very fearful of it?
Well, I don't think UFOs are the first step or phase in a person having a breakthrough or an opening within their own unconscious mind. I think first challenging the systems of which we live in, which is what you do, challenging the media and the tales and the stories that are told to keep us oppressed. I think once you crack open that jaw, I think then the possibilities are only going to be endless of the information that a person first will want to look for or seek, and then eventually find. So I think that many people who don't go up the road of understanding themselves, first off, will never have the capacity or the desire to look beyond themselves, because it's belonging to a tribe, and the tribe is the story that we're initially indoctrinated in a family, in schools, in churches and synagogues, and whatever it may be. And it takes a brave person to be able to question what they've been told and come up with their own uh, interpretation of life and what exists. And, if you research further than just beyond what religion teaches you, if they researched or they actually looked into the, what the Vatican speaks about of how they've had encounters and their own personal, discoveries, and, even NASA, obviously, and astronauts. So the very people who are suppressing or would have the potential to suppress the information actually have a vault of information on the complete opposite side that's investigatable and to actually to look into and to learn from.
Yeah, I witnessed that, not with UFOs, but I share about the Mandela effect. You know
Right.
about the Mandela? Yeah, a lot of some, not a lot, but some people that come across it, they like a lot of people are fascinated, and then some people they get angry about the Mandela effect. But I think it makes you, you're questioning your own reality, and then people don't want to hear about it, so they attack the messenger, maybe, huh?
Well, it's the same thing with our current situation, right? The dollar bill, in terms of digital and everything that we know. First off, it was the horse and buggy replaced by a motor engine, right? Then you have a telephone eventually replaced by a cordless telephone that we don't even need a string attached to it. We can walk around with it. Then you have a cell phone. So I think practicality eventually wins out over, nostalgia and history. So I think that eventually things will shift and people will have no choice. What really is happening is that people have no choice because they're forced to do it as opposed to learning about it and then doing it. In my opinion, there's a difference between having to be forced to do something and saying, well, that's what they teach us. That's what we got to do. Like, we got to follow along and following like in a sheep-like manner, as opposed to like saying, all right, I've, I've learned every aspect of what's going on. I may not like it, but at least I'm a little bit more informed than just going along with the program. So I think personal education and learning about different things helps reduce the anxiety, at least to some extent. I mean, it could increase the anxiety because we know too much, but it could also make you a little bit, when you have an education about something or something, usually there's less fear involved. And I think that, I think so many people getting back to that subject of wanting to hold on, as I always say, to a handrail that they're familiar with, then grab the other side of the handrail that they don't know how slippery or how steep it may be.
Yeah, I think it's all about and having the drive to unlearn and relearn and educate ourselves and taking ownership. I always love science, and I've been changing up my way of bodybuilding and nutrition, all those types of things. But now, I have to learn about other things like digital assets. I didn't know about digital assets, and in the past year, I sit down, I watch a class, I learn, and we're all going to have to learn everything ourselves, and that's where sovereignty is coming into play. We went full circle again. So it's really about sovereignty, education. It's about being conscious of these things, not being in the dark, knowing every aspect. And I think in the past, a lot of people say, "Well, I don't know this, so let's go to the false idol on the TV or the person with the certificate." But we're all going to have to take ownership of ourselves. And I see the changes in myself, and I feel that's the theme across the board. Is everyone is we're in a place in the world,
Yes.
as we're speaking how to navigate these times. The moral of the story is do it ourselves.
The moral of the story, I agree, is do it ourselves. But and I also believe that it's important for us not to try to convince other people who are not ready to jump off the diving board into the water. A person who actually, is like panicking on the diving board, you tell them, okay, either get off or jump in. And most people are in that state. And I don't think that we can force, it's desirable to want to educate people. But again, the student has to open up the book and has to have the pen out to take the notes and to want to absorb the information that's being told to them. Otherwise, it's a waste of time. And it actually is counterproductive to that person's own free will and their own development. And without their struggle and without them having to face this adversity of conflict of saying, oh, I don't believe in this, or I'm going to put up a wall against these people who give them this information, they'd never have that personal conversation or that personal inward journey to then come into conflict to say, wait a minute, I've been told this, I've been told that. Maybe there is something to it. Just like each one of us goes through our own transformation in each lifetime to come to a place that we are where we weren't before in the life before. So each person is more evolved hopefully in the next lives and the lives we lead coming into this life and future possibilities and future lives themselves. So I think it's important for us to allow people to experience their own free will and not waste the energy upon others, where we could use that energy for ourselves and, you know, eat with ourselves or the people who are already on board with this information and this path.
Yeah. It's important to make sure the cup is filled up first. And you taught me a long time ago when I started this to say, oh, I'm going to help everyone. But you said some people would rather pull you into the pit with them instead of rising up out of the pit with you. And I learned a lot from that lesson. And
Yeah.
everyone should concentrate on free will. This was a great conversation. How can people find you?
Well, I have my website, Adam Gale Universal Healing, AdamGaleUniversalHealing.com. I offer shamanic work, Akashic record readings, and actually trying to assist men on their path of finding the masculine balance between the feminine and the masculine qualities within themselves. And I have my YouTube channel, Conversations with Adam Gale and Inspiring Minds. So, yeah.
Well, this was a great conversation. And if anyone stumbled across this and hasn't seen me, I have a YouTube channel, Our Everyday Lives, and I also have a Patreon, same Our Everyday Lives, and we hold live Zoom meetings. We're going to be getting ready for one right now. It was great to be with you. Is there anything you want to wrap up with tonight?
No, I just want to say that we need self-love. That's the most important thing. Working on self-love and not judging ourselves, and trying to find a balance between the parts of ourselves that going easier on ourselves. I think that's what's important.
All right, yeah, it's listen, and we say we're in a spiritual battle, but we also need breaks. We need to have some distractions, because if you're serious all day long, I always share about the law of 80-20. 20%, you gotta take that time for self-care and self-love and just relax. So
Right.
it was great being with you tonight, and we'll do this again very soon.
Absolutely. Great. Thank you, Michael.
All
Thank you.
right, take care. Bye bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.